seconds here, bud.
You got it.
Last check. That light, yes, no, too much shadow?
No, it looks good. What do you guys think out in the
Okay.
chat land? You can see Tim and Mr. Man.
That guy.
Yeah, that guy, Mr. Man.
Yeah.
Chris, Mr.
Let's
Man.
go with that.
Mr. Man.
Let's go with that.
There we go.
All right, man, I'm good when you are.
Ready to roll.
Hey, everybody. Welcome to the first of its kind, I think, between myself, Chris the Hitman, and Bob the Skunk Boss, trying to do some cross-branded promotion on our channels and hopefully get a weekly going. We're also joined by T3 the man, Tim himself. T3 will be explained in a later episode. So what we wanted to do first, first and foremost, Bob, also thank you for joining us, sir.
Oh, my pleasure, man.
All right. The three of us definitely, RC enthusiasts, and we run a lot of oval racing, different tracks, clay, dirt, whatever. So a lot of the information you're going to get today is going to pertain to the basics. And when I say the basics, you got to check with your local hobby shop or your local track to see what their requirements are. I know that my Mud Boss here, if I run that at my local hobby shop, which I do weekly on Friday nights, RC Excitement in Fitchburg, Mass. You guys can send the check to my house.
I gotta ask one question though, Bob's. Whose mic's gonna turn up, mine or theirs? It's live, folks.
It is live. It is.
That's right. We're live. We're loaded. Live, loud, in your face. Because my mic's just about all the way to the top.
Yeah, I think my mic is about as good as it's gonna get.
Okay.
Probably bring it closer to me, but or I could bring myself closer to it.
That's what I can do that too.
As I was saying, a lot of different tracks will run the different classes in our local hobby shop that we run. We run several classes, including what's called Sportsman. At some other at some other tracks, this is live. Sportsman would actually be this Mud Boss. Some tracks will run it as a small block, meaning a brushed 12-turn motor. Essentially, it's stock. Our track that we run weekly will run this truck or this one here as the Sportsman class. It's a step above a novice class. Novice is a run what you brung, anything goes. Learn the oval, learn how to run, and then bump up a little more competition in the Sportsman class. So before I get into the basics for you, as far as what you could start with at any track, as far as those classes go and should be okay, again, check with those tracks, check with those hobby shops before you make purchases, on my word, because I'm not buying it. So if you buy it, it's yours. But before I do, Tim, anything to add to that?
Oh, not much. Just, with our local track, there's a few more options of what you can run for, say, the Sportsman. Like I know Chris here has Tracks to Slash 2-wheel drive setup. I myself run a Losi 22S, a little customized, of course, because the Sportsman class on our track is open class. They really free up, really run any electronics, any base chassis, 2-wheel drive, short course. So there are options out there depending on what your local track allows.
Bob, how about yourself?
Well, I run a multitude of different things. I run the 12T, what is called Sportsman in other areas. And then our Sportsman is basically run what you brung, which is a TLR short course truck, 17.5, and a sprint car. That's basically it, what I run at RC.
All right. And, guys, the reason, and Tim and Bob, chime in after this statement, because I'd like to know your thoughts on this. The reason I chose to try to focus on the Slash today, in particular, is obviously our local hobby shop, our local track. And outside of that, at other tracks, the Slash is the basis of the Mud Boss class. So anyone can purchase a slash and pretty much fit in anywhere they go. And
Right.
Bob, you've traveled a lot more than me, so I'm going to toss it to you first.
Oh well, what exactly are you getting at with this? The
As far as the Traxxas slash, you can take it out of the box, make some adjustments, throw a Salvus body on it,
Yep.
and you can run almost anywhere.
Right. Yeah, you can. There's some tracks they stick to Salvus rules, which can be a bit constraining if you're running, say, a different body. Some tracks will not allow you to run different bodies, different the RPM parts, stuff like that. But you can basically just throw a stock slash right on the track, and it's a little tough to manage, a little tough to handle, but it can be done.
It can, Tim.
Yeah, like you said, the slash is a pretty universal truck to get started in, especially if you're new to oval racing.
Mhm.
You can take a slash right out of the box and run in a novice class, and then once you get the hang of it, you can use that. Depending on the track you're at, that same truck could go into sportsman, or you can just replace the body, run right into mud boss. So it's a pretty universal truck to get started with.
And I might add, it's one durable freaking truck too.
Yeah, it sure is.
Yeah. I'm going to leave it at that because we're live and I don't want to name names. I've been hit by a few, but anyway, with the slash as well, guys, it's, for you watching or thinking about getting into oval, it's fairly inexpensive. I think it's about $199 out of the box, 2-wheel drive, regular, high center of gravity chassis, they call it. And I have that under the mud boss. I'll show you that real quick. The high center of gravity chassis. All right. You have your lifts and your axles, everything under the chassis instead of on top of it. With the sportsman class we run at RCE, I have a low center of gravity chassis in this one, and that's acceptable, but it would not be acceptable here. If you start getting into big block, brushless stuff, there are different requirements. And again, some places will allow that LCG under your mud boss. But for now, we're just going to put this back where it goes and take the cover off of the actual slash. So again, $200 in the box is typically this setup without this beautiful Lightning McQueen Dynaco body I made myself.
Yeah, that is pretty sweet.
It is gorgeous, isn't it? None of the lights I have in here are on there, but this is, and I'll move all this stuff out of my way so you guys can see it better. This is your stock slash. Other than that low center of gravity chassis, like I said, you want the high center of gravity chassis out of the box for that $200 because you're not getting it for anything less. Also, if this were the high center of gravity that I have under my mud boss, which used to be my old sportsman car, it's easy. Like we've talked about, you throw a body on it, now you have a mud boss. Outside of that, your shocks, your bumpers, your body posts, all the suspension, the transmission, the motor, and the ESC are everything you're going to use in both classes. And again, Bob, I'm going to hit you a little bit. You've been on the track a lot more than Tim and I, and I don't want to say you get around. You're well traveled in the RC world, so Skunk, take that a little bit with that stock equipment being something that you can carry along class to class.
Yeah, oh yeah, definitely. There's different. Like when I went to New Jersey this past year, it was something all new to me. We could change the servo. We could actually put a fan on the motor because, the motors are pretty high geared. Everything's pretty high geared, so they heat up, and we're allowed to run, fans. We're allowed to, excuse me, let me mute my phone. It's just that it varies from track to track because, at RCE we have loose dirt and the different conditions, apply to what you're trying to do. I mean, you can take one of these stock trucks and actually get it to handle like a well-oiled race car, which really surprises me.
Absolutely. And we're going to talk a little bit about some of those mods. But before we do, Tim, I know yours is based on a Losi, but the same kind of applies. Um, Bob kind of said something about it being geared to, and gearing. That's something that, in the Slash comes stock, typically 90 tooth spur and a 16 tooth pinion, but we can play with the gearing.
Correct, because I actually run in my Mud Boss. I run a 24 tooth pinion, and I believe 87 tooth spur. If I'm not mistaken.
86 probably.
86, yeah, 86.
Yeah.
Sorry, 86 24, I think.
Yep, I'm running 8622 in mine. And
I think I'm running what is it? 90. I want to say 9019, actually.
Yep. And those are, the things we're going to discuss about setup for those of you out there in YouTube land. These are personal preferences. The gearing that we all just said we're running is personal preference. Your driving style is going to dictate a lot of what you do with these modifications and with these setups. So, try it out, but see what works for you. Don't just say, oh, those guys I saw on YouTube said, and then, make that work for you. If it doesn't work, try something different.
That's right. Because I could drive either yours or Tim's cars, and I wouldn't be able to drive it. I mean, it's all personal preference.
Trophy, so.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah, with the way I run my gearing, I run kind of a high gearing to have a lot of low end torque because of the way I run my exponentials on my transmitter.
Right.
Yep.
And a lot of that is true. What Tim said, it's radio settings too.
Right, and that's where, like I said, we're going to get into that stuff with you guys. But the idea that you could start with this base chassis and this, base system it comes with. All the smoke's lingering around my truck. I hope that was a cool video effect. So let's get into that a little bit. So we're running around an oval. All right. We have stock electronics, stock radio. What you definitely want to get into for yourself, and nickel metal hydride batteries will do just fine for you, but you probably should look into lipo. Lipo batteries, lithium polymer. Everybody's heard the horror stories. Everybody's seen the house fires and the garages explode on YouTube. It's what news is. If it's horrible, we want to see it. I was a guy that was hesitant to get into the lipo game. I got a wife and kids in my house. I didn't want to have to store that. Blah blah blah. Did a lot of research. One thing that made me feel very secure in doing so, after learning and talking to different guys, was going to the Army surplus store and getting an ammo can. That's where I store my batteries. When they're not in use, they're not in my truck. This one is in my truck because I was going to do a demo, but I'm not moving all this equipment to do it. But lipo battery storage is key, and we'll get into lipos and how to care for them and so forth. Maybe in the next episode or two, because I think that's really important for you guys that are starting out. But for now, an ammo can definitely for the storage. I've actually seen a grenade tossed in one, and we shut it and it blew up and nothing happened. So if one of these batteries gets itself going over time or mismanufactured, whatever the case may be, that ammo can is a lifesaver.
Oh,
I drilled
definitely.
a hole in the top that's about a half an inch diameter. That's just to vent it if it does, so that I don't create a bomb.
Now,
Otherwise,
did you remove the rubber seal with that too, or?
No.
Okay.
So with that half-inch hole in the top,
Yep.
what that allows for is venting, and then the rubber seal doesn't come into play. The rubber seal may melt if something were to happen with my batteries, but again, if that melts, it's fine because it's still shut.
Right.
And what I don't want is the rubber seal and no vent, because that's when you get the buildup of all the gases and you create that bomb. Likely not going to happen. Again, I've seen a grenade thrown in one. But you know, you never know if you're getting the real deal or not. So, you know, try to get the best you can, a nice ammo can. Doesn't have to be at the Army surplus store. It can be a legit ammo can from the gun store,
Right.
if you have that license, but something to that effect to keep your batteries. A lot of what you'll see at hobby stores for the lipo storage, those cans are vented. You'll notice there's a Batman one out there. I think every hobby shop carried it at least once, if not more.
Yeah, it's called a bat safe. I have one, and I tell you what, a lot of security, of security.
Yep. And those holes in the top are not decoration.
Nope.
That's venting as well. So the venting is a big key to that storage. And again, we'll get into lipos because that's a 3-hour episode too.
Oh yeah, coming from a guy who used to run nickel metal hydride to lipo, it's night and day. Night and day.
No, it definitely. When we do that episode, maybe Tim or I will wear the Gilligan hat. But
I do like blowing stuff up, Chris.
I do know that. Yeah. We'll do an outdoor shoot for that one. But all right. So some of the mods you can do to this stock Traxxas Slash. First and foremost, you guys will all get in that box with your Slash. If I can get these things off.
Oh God. You need a clip it tool here, sir.
Huh?
You need a clip it tool.
I need a half a brain so I can actually, think about this stuff before I try to get these things off. All right. Anyway, arthritis doesn't work. But as you can see on this rear shock, because that's the best one in the shot, right here, what I've done is they're called preloads. And I have some clip rings that will come with your Slash in the box, stuck in different measurements in different sizes in different positions. And the reason we want to preload those shocks before we even think or talk about what thickness oil is inside, things like cutting your springs, which you'll hear, getting thicker springs, is to set the balance for your truck. When you're on that oval, you're taking all left turns. So you're going to preload the right side a lot more than the left. So as you're coming into the turn, you have more stability there and more tension, and you can get through the turn without starting to slide out. The oils inside, the depth and the thickness, you are the man. See, he doesn't have arthritis. That's the little clip right there. I'm going to try to hold it against my hand so you can see it. There it is. They snap right on, and unless you're me, they snap right off.
Real easy to put on, a little harder to take off.
Yeah. The shock pod. So another thing about, your local tracks, most guys, and, if you travel like Bob, you've met a lot of people. I have traveled to a couple of tracks, and, even being the new guy, being the stranger, being the out-of-towner, guys will jump on and go, hey, this track's a little different because of X. You should think about doing this to your truck. I know, Tim and myself, when new guys come to the track, we're always available and helpful if we can be, so that those guys have somebody to turn to and say, hey, my truck did this, why? And then we can explain it and try to help them set up their truck. Ask the guys at your track. The guys in the hobby store, unless they run it, they're good for your base. And I don't want to discredit anybody's knowledge. I'm not trying to do that. They're good to get you that base. But the guys that are actually racing are the guys you want to talk to about your setup.
Yeah, because there's so many different setups out there and options as far as learning how to customize it to the way you drive. Like when I first started, I paid attention to the guys at my local track that were running good times and winning races and stuff, and started chatting them up with how they had their setups. And I kind of took a lot from a bunch of different guys and applied it to myself. What worked for me, what didn't work for me, a lot of trial and error as far as shock preloads, shock weight, basically just kind of test and tune until you figure out what works and what doesn't work.
Bob?
Yep. Oh yeah. I mean, I've been fortunate to hang out with guys down in Jersey, I'm going to name drop here, a guy named Rick Loesch, who's like
I told you he gets around.
I don't get. I'm well tried. I'm just. Let's see. One guy in my chat said he's. Let's just say experienced. I mean,
Ooh, I
I
like
may
it.
not
I
be the
like
greatest driver in the world, but I pay attention to what
Sure.
these guys tell me. And shocks, your setup is basically the most important thing: tires, shocks, and just battery placement. I mean, you can. Let's see. The another one, KHD Speed Lab. I'm going to name drop again. They make a great tool for those whatever you call them, those the retainers.
Oh, the preload clips.
Yeah, the preload clips. It makes them so
Or
much
as I
easier
like
to
to call them, those
adjust.
effing things. Right.
You can actually see a video on my YouTube channel about if you're interested in those preload spacers.
What is that YouTube channel, sir?
Skunk Boss RC.
Hey, all we're name dropping, right?
Might as well plug
Yeah,
yourself.
that's right. A shameless plug.
Yeah.
But
Sorry, go ahead, Bob.
I tend to ramble, so.
Gosh,
But your setup is crucial. You could take this car right out of the box. You can turn laps, but you're going to be all over the place. And you're finding let-off points. Everything comes into play. And I just would like to see, people pay attention, listen, to the seasoned guys, or even guys like you two that know what you're talking about.
Well, that's the thing. I raced years and years ago. I mean, in my teens, before I joined the military, I raced a Traxxas Cat. I'm dating myself here now because if you look that up, that was a long time ago. A Tamiya Blackfoot.
Yep. Same.
Nike had batteries. Okay. Yes, kid. Nike had batteries. The phone had a curly cord from the wall. It was the weirdest thing.
Oh my god!
And then I'd use the payphone at the shop to tell Dad I was ready to come
Wait,
home.
what year did you start racing?
86, 87 ish.
You started racing before I did. I started racing in '89, but my first car was a Tamiya Wild Willie.
No.
Yeah.
So you went, hey, I'm gonna run, and I'm just gonna have this short wheelbase that can't do anything but tip over.
All it can do is wheelies all down the track. I was the laughing stock. But you know what?
You do what you do. I remember one time with my cat, I went to the track to practice, and they had shut down the dirt. And they, again, dating myself, some of you from the southeast coast of Massachusetts may remember in West Bridgewater, Massachusetts, there was a place called Roller World. It was a roller rink. And when they went out of business, an RC shop actually bought it, Radio Controlled Performance Center, or as we called it, RCPC. And at the time, they actually imported dirt, made an indoor dirt track, and their oval was a banked carpeted oval around the dirt track. So I went there to practice. Dirt track's closed because they're doing a different setup. So I'm running my dirt car around the oval because I'm just a stupid kid. And, I really wanted to jump, but hey, the banks look cool and I'm riding the wall. Guys are laughing at me. I hit the wall so hard, I was up on it for a little while. And then again, I've done that at RCE running the temporary fence, haven't I? So not much.
The catch fence, I like to call that thing.
Yeah, it caught me and I ran on it. So for a good 6 or 7 feet. Yeah. Not much has changed, but getting back into it after almost 30 years, I pulled my slash out of the box, put 2 large retaining pins, as Skunk likes to call them, or as they are referred to, preload clips on the outside of my truck and threw it on the track. And it didn't do bad. Like Bob said, it's a good truck right out of the box. You're going to fight it a little bit to, really get a good line and hold it on an oval. And when I say fight, it's not difficult. But compared to something that's been set up for specifically the oval, it's night and day. Right. This car, that car, these 2 cars, Bob's plethora of vehicles, they're all going to run on that oval a lot better than something straight out of the box because they've been set up to.
Right.
So, we'll go into some setup stuff later on in the series. But for now, like I said, the preload clips, the tires, as we've talked about a little bit, and we'll go through plenty of those later on. Your shock weights, you want a little heavier on the outside, a little lighter on the inside. And I'm not naming weights. And I'm doing that for a reason because, and I'm shooting from the hip here, so don't make me look like a fool. This one's running 60-30. You're running?
I'm actually running 80-60.
Okay. Again, different drivers, different driving styles. And
You got to absolutely be blown away by my weights. 50 all the way around.
Yep.
That explains a lot.
But then again, I adjust my radio accordingly using like what Tim was talking about, the exponential, or the throttle speed, and I have like a 3-step throttle speed.
Right.
It helps the car push less like a truck.
Right.
Once you're playing around with weights, like I run a heavier weight around the board because this particular car is kind of has a high center of gravity. So I got rid of that traction roll. Right. Some of that, going tight into a turn with traction to avoid it wanting to roll, body roll. I run a heavier weight to help contradict that.
And yeah, the body roll, when I went down to Bethel, Connecticut to, Bethel RC Race Arena, which I'll be doing week after this one on Saturday, the 17th, I believe. They have an outdoor clay track. Long story short, had a ton of body roll. I threw a little bit more preload in then, but I adjusted my oil weights since so I could take the preloads back out and whatever. And this car, my Mud Boss, man, the thing was on rails last week. So, we'll see if that continues. And a lot of that is the driver. Because I will say this, another one of my vehicles or RC vehicles, my street stock car is just as fast as the guys pulling down the class every night. It's on rails if I am.
Okay, so, one of my viewers said you would also want to put more negative camber on one side of the vehicle, maybe even more positive toe on the inside wheel.
Correct. And that's what, for now, with the basic setup, and you can see I have camber here, right? There's a little more on my right side than my left. Again, personal preference.
I actually run the same camber on actually all my cars, my Mud Boss, my Sportsman, and my Street Stock. I run -3, +3.
Right. A lot of guys are different. My driving style, I think this benefits where this is almost straight up. I think it's in maybe 2 degrees, where this is about 4. When I roll into that, it helps me drive. In the back, I'm towed in a little bit as it is stock. So again, without getting too into the technical setup today, because I'd like to build to that, is, that basic truck coming out of the box with the things in the box can be adjusted right there trackside between qualifiers and mains and so forth to be a hell of a rig.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
So we'll get into, front ends and rear ends and camber and toe and tires. And, because one of the things I like to do, I hate buying pre-glued tires and I don't like gluing tires. But one of the things that I like to do, and it comes
I don't
from
think any of us like gluing tires.
My fingers.
I've ruined some great Led Zeppelin shirts gluing tires. God dang it.
Yeah, exactly. I've been stuck to more pairs of pants than I'd like to admit. But one of the things I like to do to my rear tires, especially because of, I don't like to pre-glue for this. My drag racing days, before I'd put the slicks on, I'd flip them inside out, scuff them a little bit on the inside with about an 80 grit sandpaper, wipe them clean, and then take a strip of Gorilla Tape, not duct tape. Now, I don't know if duct tape works, but Gorilla Tape worked for me. And I would line that inside, flip it back out, and there are going to be people that see this video, and there may even be in your chat right now, Bob, that say, You never do that to a tire. It weakens the sidewalls. Well, it's only once, and this is the reason.
Right.
I flipped it back out, put my foam in and mounted it. Okay, what that's going to do is it's going to prevent tire expansion.
Yep.
Now, tire expansion, you'll hear a lot of guys call it pizza cutters.
Ballooning.
Ballooning.
Right? Because when you accelerate, the motor is turning them so fast, they start to balloon. And if you go really fast, they start to thin out and become that pizza cutter. That tape eliminates that. It's not a cheat. That's just tire prep. Okay. In drag racing,
Oh God, here we go. I don't. I got disconnected from the call. Jeez, I'm crow. Let's see. Give me a second. See if I can get back in. I got DC'd from the call because the stinking free version, but let's see. Yeah, they only allow you an hour, which kind of sucks. So I got to let these guys know. But it's. Let's see. I can't talk and type at the same time. I'm very uncoordinated like that. Let's see. Wrong one. Let's see. Yeah, we're only allowed an hour. Let's see if we can do this. Should be. Come on.
there we go.
Oh my God. The thing is, it told me, it was like, you got 5 minutes.
Well, you know what? And the thing is that it didn't tell me. And so we'll
Technical difficulties.
thankfully I am editing this later, and unfortunately you're live. But hey guys, it happened.
That's right.
So what was I saying? Oh, drag racing tires. Okay. In drag racing, I had a guy actually tell me that was wrong. You wanted to balloon tires, blah, blah, blah. Unfortunately for him, a week before I smoked him in a cash race. So again, different drivers, different opinions. You're going to have a lot of guys have an opinion out there, and one of them might be right for you. 3 of them might form the right one for you.
Nowadays, they even sell corded tires to prevent that ballooning.
Well, oddly enough, the Proline drag tires that are supposed to be belted.
Corded belted.
I did that to them anyway because I'd still balloon.
Yeah.
With my drag.
Not so much a worry in oval racing.
Not as much,
not as much as in drag racing.
You never know. And again, as we're talking about setting up shocks and weights to take that corner nice and even, the last thing I want is for this tire to blow up a little bit more than this one and shoot me off that way when I'm trying to go left.
Right.
So I just do it as a preventative feature. It probably does nothing for me. But
one thing I found out on my big block is you don't hold your car and start juicing the throttle so your tires balloon. You get the weight of the car sitting on the track. That helps. It depends on what because I've cut into some tires pretty bad, especially on one side, and it's like I ripped it right up, and I'm like, what am I doing wrong? Is it because the tires are ballooning on the track? No, it's because I was holding the car before my race and just going, jerking the throttle.
And that's, it's funny. I have the little, I have the track in my backyard where we race the Losi Mini Tees. And last night, not a lot of guys showed up, but last night was a learn to drive kind of session, and a few guys showed up and a few of the kids showed up, And that was a main thing for what we talked about. We talked about throttle control.
Right.
Whether it's the minis or these 10th scale or whatever, if you're back and forth off that trigger like it's a semi-automatic pistol, pop, 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 like that,
Yes, sir.
every time you do it, if you really watch your truck closely, you're sending it into different areas.
Right.
Because the throttle, the slipper clutch, the way the tire's turning, all those factors pull in. If you're gentle, and I'll do it this way, there's my trigger finger. If I don't want to accelerate all the way, but I hold nice where I want to be when I'm moving, I'm not jerking the truck. Therefore, I'm not sending a jerk through the gearing and then into the tires. You're going to have a lot smoother line.
Right. Now, here's a
And-
question for you both. With,
Okay.
with your slipper clutch, do you tighten it all the way or do you keep it loose?
I run mine completely tight. I
Same.
don't run basically the slipper is totally solid, so it's not really slipping at all.
Right.
And for me, it
For
depends.
oval racing.
It depends on the class for me with oval racing.
Hmm.
My Sportsman is fully locked like his. My Street Stock is also tightened all the way. But my Bud Boss is tightened all the way and then backed off one full turn.
Makes sense.
And that's, again, my driving style, the way the car performs for me and my driving style. So it benefits me to do it that way on that car.
Okay.
So
One thing with Bob's RC says with two-wheel drive, you either throttle or with steering and throttle control.
correct. So that was actually last night. That was the other thing I worked on with the kids, especially, was the steering and the throttle control, because the young guys or new guys to the hobby, the first thing you see on a racetrack, whether it's jumps or an oval or whatever, is you want speed,
Yep.
right? Everybody wants speed.
Guilty.
Me too. Me too. I've done it more than I'd like to admit, once again. But within that speed, if you have control of it, your steering, your turning ratio, the angle you're turning your tires, and all of that stuff come into play as far as how fast you can get around the track.
Right.
So, RC, thank you for that, because that's key. Last night, working with the kids, we were working on throttle and steering. Right.
Bob says wide open or nothing. On oval, it's
Bob,
not easy.
Again, driving styles, everyone, right?
Everyone just wants to send it.
Yeah. And believe me, we have some of them as well.
Oh, yeah.
I don't think at least one of them lets go the trigger the whole time is on the
Yeah,
clock.
well,
But anyway,
unfortunately.
no names.
No
Yes.
name
Yeah,
drops.
You
we're
guys
getting
like
into
my
throttle
painting?
control. Again, we'll get into it in a later episode, but exponentials come in real handy with throttle exponential, steering exponential.
Mhm.
What are exponentials? So now as he's thinking about how to answer that, when we're talking about exponentials, we're talking about not your stock radio. We're talking about an upgraded radio that you can set more features and really fine tune your truck.
So with exponentials, you get what's called a curve. So you can adjust an exponential in positive or negative. So say throttle exponential, I run negative 30 negative 25 throttle exponential and negative 30 steering exponential. So I got a negative curve so that when I go into a turn, I'm letting off my throttle and almost coasting around the beginning of the turn, and then slowly getting on my throttle halfway around the turn. And as I come out of the turn, I'm really getting on the throttle. And what exponential does is it takes away initial full throttle. So when I'm pulling the throttle, the exponential controls, like, how do I explain this? It gives you a little bit of throttle.
You can't send
at
it
the
at
bottom of the curve, right? It builds up. It slowly builds up throttle, so you're not just spinning your wheels. You're not just giving it too much throttle.
It's basically ramping up, and it's like shifting gears.
That's what I was looking for. Thank you, Bob.
You're welcome. You're welcome. And another one, GWT 181 says we're all guilty of full sends, and Bob's RC says expo and dual rates are very important to know, which is true.
Dual rates are huge, and again, that's going to be on your aftermarket radio. And one of the things that we'll build towards, because again, what we're trying to do with this series, take that stock slash and go run, and then build up and adjust and do and whatever. So we will get into that as well. And I apologize to those of you that may be more experienced that have sat here now for almost 40 minutes or so and come to this point where I'm not going to learn a damn thing. You will eventually, but maybe not today. We're trying to do this and build so that the beginner can go buy a truck, start fresh, learn some stuff, hopefully learn some stuff. I'm not saying that I know anything or I'm the be all end all of oval racing, because that I'm not. But what I have learned, I'd like to share. And, if I share that, and, like I did with, you're both familiar with 10-year-old Blake up at the track. He's now better than me. And, well,
the Prodigy?
The Prodigy.
Oh, that kid's amazing.
I gave him that nickname on purpose.
Oh, that kid, man.
But, I'll give you everything I know. And if you become better than me, then so be it. I've accomplished something. And that's the goal of the three of us sitting down with these videos as well. So we're going to try to take you from beginner to wherever you want to be within the hobby, and hopefully you learn a thing or two, and maybe we will along the way. As far as that goes, I just learned about exponentials, which is why I made him describe it, because I had no idea.
It's a little complicated when it was first explained to me, it made absolutely no sense until I kind of learned how to play around with it and figure out what it did, and by a lot of error in the trial and error. Right. But I want to figure out how to get my in particular cars set up with it. How it helps is it's night and day difference. It's really one of those things you got to learn how to do to go from a novice racer to a competing racer.
Right. It's once you get the grasp of it, it's just makes driving so much easier.
And at the end of the day, it makes it a lot more fun too, because when you can control your car around that track for a full race without wiping out, crashing, or whatever, granted on who you're racing with,
frustration level goes down.
Frustration level goes down, fun goes up, and it's something more. Me, I'm being a mechanic my entire life. The setup of the cars and working on the cars is actually one of my favorite aspects of it. What doesn't work, what works, trying different motors, trying different electronics, trying different suspension. The technical aspect is a lot of fun for me. So figuring out one more step, getting into exponential and steering in rates and EPAs and all that is just another cool techie thing to get into.
Oh yeah, we're all RC nerds.
Oh yeah.
Bob's RC said Expo is pretty much sensitivity around center or neutral.
That's a perfect definition.
And unfortunately for myself, when I was running my Traxxas Cat and or Tamiya Blackfoot in 1987 with my stick radio, right? Exponentials didn't exist. And so when I started racing again after almost 30 years in the spring of this year, it was, okay, let off the throttle, turn this amount so that you can do what you just said and accelerate and get back up to speed.
In 1987, I was still playing with play school cars.
Well, you know what? Thankfully for you, because in 1987, my wife wasn't even born yet.
Oh, neither was I. Lucky man. Oh, no, 87. Yeah,
wow.
87.
I'm a lucky man. She was born in 88, and she's a lot younger than me. So anyway, if I can't race, at least I got that. But yeah, so I hope this kind of gave you kind of an idea of what we're going to attempt to do. For those of you who see it and are still a little unsure, like I said, if you're in the area, because we're going to cater this a little bit more towards our home track than anything else. Radio Controlled Excitement, Fitchburg, Massachusetts. They run club racing every Friday night. We're there. We start at 6. You can find my ugly mug. You can find his handsome face. Bob, if he's there, you can smell him.
Oh,
it's a skunk boss thing. And find one of us, find anyone that's willing to talk, and whatever. Hell, if there's practice between rounds, I'll let you drive my car.
I'll let you drive my car too.
Come drive it, and then we can. Sure. After my next race, we'll run into the hobby shop if you like it, and I'll point out kind of what you liked, what you didn't, where to start. I have no problem. In fact, I enjoy helping you guys get started. If you are someone that's already racing with us and you're viewing this, I know I met another guy last week who's now followed us on Facebook as well. You know, asking questions. He knows some stuff, but oval's a different beast. You know, it's checkers, not chess out there. And you know, where off-road racing, go for broke, right? And I'm not demeaning off-road racing. I did it, and I'm in awe of some of the guys that do it now. But yeah, here's your start line. Here's your finish line. You know, don't take the triple because your car won't make it. You don't want to pace the top of that third ramp.
That last week, bent the chassis.
Yep. So those are, you know, those are kind of the chess moves that they run through. The chess moves we run through is not necessarily how to pass somebody, but how to keep that thing on the track so we can complete laps. And we'll get into that with you. Like I said, come to the track, you know, find us. We'll help you out. If you want to drive my stuff, I'm more than willing. I can't speak for the other guys. I've always been that way. So as of right now, Bob, closing words for the Skunk Man.
Well, all I got to say is just go check out KPC RC.
That's the one. YouTube, KPC RC.
Yeah, gotta plug the man, and you know he's very helpful, very insightful. And Tim, it's always a pleasure to race with you. How's the foot, by the way?
It's getting there, limping along.
There you go. Still got the boot?
Oh, I still got the boot on.
Where we said we'd explain it.
So they call me T3 the Tominator at our local track.
Tominator.
I lost 3 toes, so it's T3. Timmy 2 toes. T3 the Tominator. Thanks Ed Som at RCE for that wonderful nickname.
Yeah, I got my nickname from Caleb and Clayton Jennings. I don't know if either of you guys are familiar with the two of them. You know, I started wearing my skunk hat, and they're like, "Oh, skunk boss, mud boss."
Yeah.
So it's correlation.
Hitman, just because you guys explained it, might as well go ahead and explain it. My first drag car was pink and black with silver trimmings in honor of Bret the Hitman Hart.
Nice.
Bob, I know you enjoy that.
Oh, yes.
And had the Hitman skull on the hood, and that's where Hitman came from. So Bret, if you're out there, rock and roll, brother. Best there was, best there ever will be.
I'm a stone cold marker myself.
Well, listen, you know, we could talk about that off the air, but right now, I'm sharing the man's nickname for Christ's sake. I got to give him the horns. But yeah, guys, KPC RC both on Facebook and on YouTube. Skunk Boss RC on YouTube. We'll get him something going soon. You know, Team Dillygaff. Rock and roll, everybody on the team. You guys can figure out what that means on your own. Bob, Tim, thank you guys so much. We'll see you guys next week.
See you next week.
Some racing from tomorrow night. And then, you know, we'll get into more of the setup of your cars. If you guys have questions, use any of those avenues or this video on YouTube to post your questions, and we will try our best to answer them within the video series. Guys, thanks so much, and we'll talk to you soon.
Let me dirt. See you guys.
Ready, roundy round. Take care, Bob.
YouTube, one of the comments enjoyed it. Can't wait for the next one.